My first price target for DIA in 2025 is $40. And now, of course, nothing I say is financial advice nor a guarantee. But why do I think so? It's because I think the rock solid fundamentals of DIA could very well allow for that to happen. After all, DIA stands for Decentralized Information Asset. Now, some people may think that this is weird and it's a corny name, but in my opinion, the fundamentals, they're not corny whatsoever. Keep in mind, it's even been stated that DIA empowers ecosystems to thrive by unlocking use cases for any asset with tailored oracles. Now, I think this right here is fantastic because the word oracle right here really gets me excited. Here's the thing. If you take a look at many decentralized applications out there as of right now, what do they need? They need something called off-chain data. And that right there is where something like an oracle steps in. Again, in this case, because an oracle, what it does is that it basically brings data from off the chain, aka again, off-chain data, and it brings that data over into the blockchain. And it's basically a data feed. So that's how amazing it is. And again, many decentralized applications out there, without this off-chain data, they simply wouldn't be able to function properly. And keep in mind, despite having thousands upon thousands of decentralized applications, there's more that's going to pop up in the future. I mean, it's only fair to assume that, right? Because you take into consideration how, the blockchain space overall, as its adoption increases, as the attention, as people know more about cryptocurrencies, again, I think it's only fair to assume that more decentralized applications are going to pop up, and most of them, again, need, these solutions, right? They need off-chain data. So if you think about it, DIA, they have this forward-thinking mindset. They understand that, hey, there's a need for this, we're going to focus on that. Now, granted, some people may think, okay, there's other competitors out there, like, for instance, like Chainlink. You take a look at the Pyth network. You take a look at, even to a certain extent, Flare, right? They have the Flare time series oracle. I totally understand that, but there really isn't that many good competitors. Yeah, sure, there are, some competitors, I would say, but there isn't that many good ones. And here's the thing. If you take a look at Chainlink, it's already very massive. I would argue that it's like the market leader because, after all, it's very well known for its decentralized oracle network. You also take a look at Pyth. I would argue that Pyth kind of has like the number 2 spot, at least in terms of like attention and hype, because, after all, the Pyth network is a blockchain oracle for market data. And when it comes to Flare, it just fits in there somewhere, right? But I don't think it's like top 2, you know what I mean? But even besides that point, when it comes to DIA, it's kind of like Pyth and also kind of like Chainlink, but then as if it's like back in time, if that makes sense. Because if you take a look at Pyth and Chainlink, they're already massive, relatively speaking. When you take a look at something like DIA, still relatively low. So that's what I really like about it. Market cap isn't even at $200 million yet. That's how low it is. Like, some people out there, when they take a look at DIA, they're like, wow, it's so small. It's not even at a $1 billion market cap. They say all this type of stuff. But for me, isn't that kind of the point? Again, I kind of feel like this is Chainlink and Pyth, but back then, if that makes sense. So that's what I really like about it. Amazing fundamentals, but then it's still relatively low. That's a no-brainer pick for me. However, it doesn't end there, because we take a look at, for instance, right? DIA currently supports over 20,000 assets. It's live on over 50 chains and is powering over 200 decentralized applications. I mean, caralho, porra. That's very impressive right there. I mean, could you imagine that? That's insane statistics, especially for a project like this, quote unquote, kind of like small and up and coming. This is, again, very amazing, at least in my opinion. Not to mention, right, DIA, you take a look at how it has like token price feeds, which supports over 3,000 tokens. There's also verifiable randomness, which is for random number generation. And again, random number generation, it's very crucial because, for instance, it can be used for video games and, of course, other applications as well. But, this has an amazing use case, in my opinion. So it's not a caca service, if it makes sense, right? Also, on top of that, you take a look at RWA price feeds. Now, RWA stands for real world asset. But even besides that point, this quite essentially provides real-time price feeds for traditional assets like stocks and commodities, and it supports over 20,000 assets. So yeah, that's insane. Not to mention, they have something called fair value price feeds. Now, fair value price feeds is basically for fair value pricing feeds for assets that accounts for the collateral ratio. Yeah, that's amazing, even though it sounds a little bit like jargon, but yeah, it is what it is. In my opinion, DIA is a very complete project. Now, it's not too complicated, but then it's not too simple as well, if that makes sense. If you actually take a look at it, I think there's beauty in simplicity, because sometimes people like a project that's too overly complicated. But in my opinion, it's kind of weird because there isn't really like a core focus, so to speak, right? It just kind of feels like all over the place, too many bells and whistles, too many knickknacks. I like something like DIA. not too complicated, but not too simple as well. And here's the thing when it comes to DIA. Yeah, sure, there are many other projects out there that could very well defeat it in terms of percentage increase, in terms of price during a bull run. I understand that because there are many like micro caps out there that have like a $100,000 market cap or like a $50,000 market cap that could very well, go into the hundreds of millions. We just don't know, right? But then inherently, there's of course a lot of risk associated, in my opinion, with something like that because it's relatively unproven. We don't really know what the community is like. We don't really know just how serious the project is. So we don't know, again, if it's going to be there to catch a full-on bull run and if it even will, go along with the ride if there is a massive, bull run, right? But when it comes to DIA, because it's not like too small, I still do believe that the risk isn't that, much, I would say in a sense. But then at the same time, it still has room to grow. You know what I mean? It's not too small, but it's not too big either. Because if, let's say, I FOMO into something like a Solana, like an Ethereum, like a BNB, like a Bitcoin, from this point onwards, right? I'm not saying like from them years ago. Again, I'm just saying as of right now, they don't really have the potential to, let's say, do like a 20x. You know what I mean? They could do like okay, but they can't do like, 20, 30x, if that makes sense. So when it comes to DIA, I think it's in a good position. Market cap is big enough, but it's not too small. So I really like that. Not to mention, right, going to the price of $40, it's a 40x from here. So, yeah, I mean, it's not bad whatsoever. Now, granted, some people out there, they look for like a 100x, like a 200x, and that's their choice. But for me, sometimes enough is enough. That's the way I view it. And DIA at the price of $40, considering everything I mentioned before in terms of fundamentals, in terms of like the use case, I just don't see why not during this bull run as my first price target. Now, my second price target for DIA is $45. Now, some people like to think that, okay, $40 was insane enough. What do you mean now $45? This is crazy, man. But I disagree because, for instance, right, if DIA were to go to the price of $45, considering current circulating supply, at that point, market cap would be around $5.4 billion. Let's say for simplicity's sake, it's like 5.5. That's kind of like nothing, really. I mean, Shiba Inu at one point reached around 40 billion. Dogecoin at one point reached over 80 billion. So this isn't like too much to ask for. Now, granted, it's not a meme coin, doesn't have the hype and fans like something, for instance, like a Doge. But I still do believe that this, if anything, showcases how this is like a relatively low bar. You know what I mean? When it comes to a project reaching this market cap. So when it comes to DIA, especially when it considers use case, its amazing fundamentals, its growing community, not to mention, right? I just don't see why not during this bull run again reaching the price of $45. Now, my third and final price target for DIA is, of course, $50, which I'm standing by the way, is my most bullish case price target scenario. And the reason why is because I think that this bull run could be so amazing. Keep in mind, there's over 600 million crypto owners, according to Crypto.com research. That's insane. That's over 500 million. That's more than ever before in history. Not to mention, you take a look at the Ethereum ETF, the Bitcoin ETF, the number of institutional investors, the amount of enterprise adoption. It's just through the roof. So I think that this bull run could be so special. Now, granted, I don't think like DIA is going to peak like 20 days or something from right now. No. But I still think it's going to take some time. But even despite that, could you imagine once Bitcoin goes to the price of like $150,000 as like Ethereum reaches like the price of over $10,000 as the FOMO, the buying pressure, the hype really is in fifth gear? At that point, DIA, again, at the price of $50, I don't see why not. I don't think it'd be too crazy. And why did I title this video 2025 price targets? It's because if I take a look at it, based off of history, as a worst case scenario, altcoins, they've been known to peak, again, as a worst case, around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. The last Bitcoin halving event happened back in April, so 18 months from then is October of 2025, around that time. So again, that's why I titled this video with that. Now, granted, things could happen a lot sooner. You just never know. But again, as a worst case, it is potentially 2025 around October. But even besides that point, some people like to say, wow, that's kind of a long time. That's around like 11 months from right now. But in my opinion, hey, if I have more time to accumulate, why not? And quite frankly, that's the only thing I can control, right? Because sure, I can check the price charts every 2 minutes. I can take a look at my portfolio every hour. Okay. But then in the grand scheme of things, I can't wave some magic wand and demand the price to pump. So what is a way for me to not miss out on the pump? Quite essentially, it's by continuously accumulating, dollar cost averaging, holding and just waiting. At least that's what I do. Again, anytime an income, acquire, hold, and I just wait. That's it. I like to keep things simple because DIA at the price of $50 during this bull run wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. I greatly appreciate it. It's Willie the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.